Welcome to Race to the Finish. In this series, we will take a look at some of the thrilling down-to-the-wire playoff races in the wildcard era. The criteria for the playoff races that I will cover goes as follows. Number 1, there must have been at least 3 teams involved in the playoff race. And number 2, the featured teams can't have clinched a playoff spot until the final day of the season. There might be some exceptions to this later on, but we'll cross that road when we get there. Now, on to episode 2. As discussed in the previous episode, the 1995 MLB season was the first since the end of the players' strike that lasted nearly 8 months, from August 1994 to April of 95. Had the previous season not been interrupted by the strike, it would have been the first to feature the newly created wildcard spot in the playoffs. That was not to be, so the strike-shortened 1995 season would be the first. The Los Angeles Dodgers were looking to return to the postseason for the first time since winning the World Series 7 years earlier in 1988. Most of their previous 6 seasons had been mediocre, although they were in position to win the division in 1991, but faltered in the final weekend. At the time of the strike in 94, the Dodgers were leading the very subpar NL West by 3.5 games. After a slow start to the 95 season, they improved in the middle part before catching up with the expansion Rockies in August, whom they traded first place with throughout the rest of the month. Speaking of which, the Rockies were in their 3rd season in Major League Baseball. After going 67-95 in their inaugural season, they improved slightly in their 2nd and were on pace to finish with fewer than 90 losses at the time of the strike. They surprised the baseball world by spending most of the season leading the NL West. In fact, from opening day on April 26th until August 12th, a span in which the Rockies played 99 games, there were only 13 days when the Rockies were not in first place in the division, ties included. They led the division by as much as 5 games in late July. The Houston Astros were looking to make it back to the playoffs for the first time since 1986, when they lost in the NLCS to the eventual World Series champion Mets. In that time, they had some above 500 seasons, but never good enough to be in serious contention for the division title. At the time of the strike in 94, they had the National League's 4th best record at 66-49, on pace for 93 wins. They were only half a game behind the Reds in the newly created NL Central, and 2.5 back of the Braves for the wild card. Despite a slow start, the Astros picked up steam in the summer, reaching a season-high 16 games over 500 on August 4th, a 6-game lead in the wild card, and only 4.5 back of the Reds in the division. This day, however, would be the last time they would be closer to the division lead than the wild card. After sweeping a doubleheader against the Pirates, the Astros embarked on an August they'd like to forget, losing 18 of 21. This included losing streaks of 6 and 11 games. By the end of this stretch, they were only 1 game over 500 and 14.5 back in the division. The worst part about this stretch is that only 6 of those losses were to teams over 500. They were 3-12 against teams under 500. The silver lining was that they were only a game and a half out of the wild card, since the Rockies lost their division lead going 6-14 in that time period, and had lost the NL West lead to the Dodgers. However, both teams would regain their composure over the next 3 weeks, with the Astros going 12-7 and the Rockies going 12-5. With 2 weeks remaining in the regular season, the Rockies led the Dodgers by 1 game in the division, who led the Astros by a game and a half in the wild card. After the Astros won the series opener against the Cubs on Monday, September 18th, they held a 3-1 lead in the 2nd game with 2 outs in the 6th when Dave Magadan couldn't handle a Sean Dunston grounder clean lead. The Cubs went on to score 4 unearned runs that inning, thanks to an Ozzie Timmons RBI single and a Scott Service 3-run homer. The Astros would go on to lose this game by 1. The Rockies and Dodgers both lost later that evening, meaning it was a huge missed opportunity for the Astros to gain ground. The next day, all 3 teams won, and it was the Dodgers who were the beneficiary of unearned runs, scoring 3 times off 2 Giants 2-out errors in the bottom of the 4th en route to a 4-2 victory. The next night, the Astros were able to gain ground without even playing, as the Rockies and Dodgers both lost. With just 10 games to go, the Astros were just half a game out of the wildcard spot. On Friday night, though, results would not go the Astros' way, as they were shut out at home by the Cardinals and the Rockies and Dodgers both won. The Dodgers were the beneficiary of their opponent's fielding errors again, scoring 2 unearned runs in the 5th en route to a 1-run victory. The next night, the Dodgers trailed by a run again in the bottom of the 8th, but tied it thanks to some, again, not-so-great defense from the Padres. In the next inning, Chris Quinn hit a walk-off home run over his brother Tony out in right field to give the Dodgers the victory, coming to within half a game of the Rockies. On Sunday, it was the Astros' turn to take advantage of opposing teams' poor defense, winning it in the 10th on a walk-off E1. Both NL West teams won later that day. Entering the final week of the season, the Rockies led the Dodgers by just half a game in the division, and the Astros trailed the Dodgers by a game and a half for the wild card. The Dodgers would host the Rockies for a pivotal 3-game series, which meant that the Astros would gain ground on someone as long as they took care of business at home against the last-place Pirates. On Monday, September 25th, the Astros won their 3rd game in a row, defeating the Pirates 10-5, while the Dodgers defeated the Rockies 4-3, thanks to an Eric Karros 2-run homer in the 6th, retaking the NL West lead for the first time in 3 weeks. The Astros shut out the Pirates the next night, 2-0, with the only runs coming unearned in the bottom of the 5th. The Rockies, not wanting to fall into a tie for the wild card, took the division lead right back from the Dodgers, winning 7-3. The 3 teams were now just separated by only 1 game, with 5 games remaining for the Rockies and Astros and 4 for the Dodgers. On Wednesday afternoon, the Astros led the Pirates 2-0 into the 7th and appeared to be on their way to a sweep. A win meant they would be at least tied for the wild card at the end of the day. However, the Pirates loaded the bases in the top of the 7th off of Astros relievers and tied it on a 2-run single from Jeff King. 2 batters later, Orlando Merced scored on a Dave Veres wild pitch with 2 outs to give the Pirates the lead. Jeff Bagwell tied it with an RBI single in the bottom half of the inning, and the score remained tied into the 11th when the Pirates loaded the bases with 2 outs. Mike Henneman relieved Todd Jones, looking to keep the game tied, but the Pirates hit back-to-back 2-out singles to grab a 6-3 lead, which they would hold on to. It was a massive missed opportunity for the Astros, as it meant they would not gain ground on the second-place NL West team. Later that night, the Dodgers took the division lead back from the Rockies with a 7-4 victory. For the final weekend of the season, the Astros traveled to Chicago to face the Cubs for a 4-game series, the Rockies went home to face the Giants for 4, and the Dodgers took the quick trip down to San Diego for 3. First up, on Thursday, the Astros took on the Cubs in a day game at Wrigley, and this one would be a classic, featuring 23 runs scored, 36 hits, lasting nearly 5 hours. The Cubs jumped out to an early 5-2 lead thanks to home runs from Scott Servais and Luis Gonzalez, but the Astros scored 3 in the 5th to tie it up. They retook the lead in the top of the 6th, but the Cubs tied it when Brian McRae hit a sharp grounder that third baseman Dave Magadan couldn't field cleanly, scoring Scott Servais with 2 outs. After Houston retook the lead in the top of the 7th, 2 Astros relievers walked the bases loaded in the bottom of the inning, and Servais tied it back up with a sac fly. In the 8th, though, the Astros took their first multi-run lead of the game on a 2-out, 2-run shot from James Mountain. Then a fan came onto the field and tackled pitcher Randy Myers. Okay, that was bizarre. That may have been good luck for the Cubs after all, as they scored twice off reliever Greg Swindell in the bottom of the 8th, tying the game at 9. Neither team scored in the 9th, but the Astros took the lead once again with a sac fly in the 10th. But just like the 6th, 7th, and 8th, the Astros were unable to hold on to the lead, and the Cubs tied it on a sac fly of their own from Sammy Sosa. Mike Brumley hit the first pitch of the top of the 11th over the left field fence, and the Astros took the lead once again. Would they hold on to it this time? I think you know the answer by now. Scott Bullitt hit a game-time single, then 2 batters later, Mark Parent hit a walk-off single. The Astros had now lost back-to-back games at the most important time of the season, with the bullpen blowing a 2-run lead in the late innings each time. Fortunately for the Astros, the Rockies were unable to extend their lead in the wild card, losing at home 12-4 to the Giants. The Astros were ready to get back at the Cubs after their tough loss the day before. They carried a 3-0 lead into the bottom of the 9th on Friday. Mike Hampton pitched 8 innings of 2-hit ball. After retiring Jose Hernandez to start off the 9th, he was pulled after allowing a 1-out single to Bart Grace. Mike Henneman, who had given up the go-ahead base hits to the Pirates 2 days earlier, came in to get the save. Henneman, who hadn't pitched since Wednesday, had a 1.84 ERA at that point in the season and had saved 25 of 28 attempts. In 49 innings pitched, he had only given up 41 hits and 12 walks. That being said, he allowed back-to-back singles to Sammy Sosa and Sean Dunston, and the score was now 3-1. Luis Gonzalez reached on an infield single to load the bases for Scott Service, who was a major contributor in the Cubs' victory yesterday. He grounded into a fielder's choice to make it a one-run ballgame and put the tying run at third, but more importantly for the Astros, they were just 1 out away from winning the game. Henneman couldn't get the job done though, as he walked Howard Johnson on a full count to reload the bases. Then Dean Hartgraves came in and walked Scott Bullitt on 4 pitches to tie the game at 3. Doug Brocail then came in just to try to get the game to extras, and he did just that by striking out Brian McRae on a full count. But the damage had been done, and the momentum had turned around. The Astros didn't score in their half of the 10th, and Brocail issued a walk, single, and an intentional walk to start off the bottom of the 10th. He got Sean Dunston to ground into a fielder's choice, getting the lead runner out at home, but Luis Gonzalez hit a bases-loaded single to walk it off for the Cubs for the second straight day. As painful as the last 3 losses had been for the Astros, all in extra innings, all with blown leads at some point, I have to talk about how improbable it is for the Cubs just to even be in this situation. I've barely even talked about them this whole video, because just 1 week prior, they were 4 games under 500, but since then, they've won 8 in a row and are still mathematically alive for the wild card. Yes, they'll need to win their last 2, and the Rockies will have to lose their last 3 just to force a play-in game, but considering that they were 5.5 back of the wild card on Sunday and are still alive today is quite remarkable. The attention then turned out west to Denver, where the Rockies now had the chance to put a stranglehold on the Astros' playoff chances and keep their division hopes alive. However, the Giants were looking to play spoiler for the second straight night, and they jumped out to a 5-2 lead entering the 4th. The Rockies answered by scoring 2 each in the 6th and 7th to take the lead. Andres Galarraga added insurance with a leadoff home run in the 8th, and the Rockies took a 2-run lead into the 9th. However, just like Mike Henneman blew the save for the Astros earlier in the day, closer Kurt Leskanich couldn't hold on to the lead. He gave up a leadoff single to Matt Williams, and Mark Carrion hit a game-tying 2-run homer. A couple batters later, J.R. Phillips hit a go-ahead double, then Marvin Bernard hit a 2-run homer off new reliever Mike Munoz, and the Giants won 10-7. As a result of the Astros and Rockies losing on Thursday and Friday, the Dodgers' playoff chances had increased from 91 to 99% without even winning a game yet. Speaking of which, right around the same time that the game at Coors Field went final, the Dodgers carried a 5-2 lead into the bottom of the 8th in San Diego, knowing that a win would clinch a playoff spot and the division, but it wasn't going to be easy. Manager Tommy Lasorda left starter Ismael Valdez out there for the 8th, but he gave up a leadoff double to Jody Reed, then a 2-run homer to Tony Gwynn, cutting the deficit to just 1. Reliever Antonio Osuna allowed a couple men to reach, but after intentionally walking Phil Plantier to load the bases with 2 down, Mark Newfield hit a 2-run double to give the Padres the lead. Trevor Hoffman pitched a 1-2-3 9th, and the Dodgers celebration would have to be put on hold. All 3 teams in contention had blown 8th or 9th inning leads on Friday night, and the standings looked as follows. The Dodgers held a 1-game lead over the Rockies for the division, who held a 1-game lead over the Astros for the wild card. Because of the Rockies' loss on Friday night, the Cubs were still alive for the playoffs. There was also the chance of a 3-way tie if the Dodgers lost their last 2, the Rockies split their last 2, and the Astros won their last 2. This only had a 2 in 64 chance of happening, or 3.125%, which was the same chance that the Cubs had of making the playoffs. The Astros took out their frustration from losing 3 straight games in extras by jumping out to a 3-0 lead before the Cubs even recorded an out on Saturday afternoon, thanks to homers from Biggio and Bagwell. The Cubs got one back in the second, but Derek May hit a solo shot of his own to give the Astros their 3-run lead back. It looked like their 3-game losing streak was going to end, but have you seen this Astros team over the last 2 months? This is a team that lost 18 of 21 and blew late leads in 3 straight games to lose in extra innings. Nothing is easy with this team. Right on cue, the Cubs erupted for 6 runs in the bottom of the 3rd, 2 of which were unearned. But as shown on Thursday, the Astros could battle back after losing the lead, and Biggio and Bagwell delivered an RBI single and double respectively to tie the game at 6 in the 4th. The Astros added 2 more in the 5th to take a 2-run lead once again, but the Cubs scored 1 in the 5th and 6th each to tie it back up. But much like Thursday's game, John Cangelosi gave the Astros the lead once again with a 2-out RBI single in the 7th. The Astros held on for the 9-8 victory, finally eliminating the Cubs from playoff contention. They kept their season alive as the Rockies snapped their 3-game losing streak with a 9-3 win over the Giants. On Saturday night in San Diego, Hideo Nomo allowed 2 runs over 8 innings, and Raul Mondesi and Mike Piazza added home runs to clinch the NL West for the Dodgers, their first playoff spot in 7 years. This meant there was no longer any possibility of a 3-way tie, and the Rockies and Astros would battle for the final playoff spot on Sunday. Before we get there, let's go over some what-ifs. What if the Astros bullpen was able to hold on to at least one of their blown leads in the final week of the season? What if the Dodgers hadn't gotten lucky, benefiting from other teams' bad defense? What if the Astros didn't lose so many games in August? What if the Rockies hadn't slumped in August as well and were able to hold on to their division lead? What if Kurt Leskanich hadn't blown the lead on Friday night? If any one of those results had gone a different way, neither the Dodgers, Rockies, nor Astros are in the position they are in right now, entering the final day of the season. For the Rockies, it was simple: win and in, or get in with an Astros loss. The Astros needed to win, and the Rockies to lose, which would then force a 1-game playoff on Monday, and the winner of that would earn the NL wildcard spot. On Sunday afternoon, Astros starter Doug Drabek did not have it. He allowed 6 runs in the 3rd, effectively ending the season for the Astros. However, if there's one thing we've learned from the Astros this weekend, it's that they'll keep battling. Derek May hit a homer to lead off the 4th. Then after a 2-out rally, Milt Thompson hit a pinch-hit 3-run homer to make it a 2-run game. Jeff Bagwell led off the 5th with a homer, then the Astros loaded the bases with no one out and scored on a double play to tie the game. Around the same time, the Astros got some good news, as the Giants were leading the Rockies 8-2 in the 3rd. It was looking good for Houston, but the Cubs, with nothing to play for, now playing spoiler, took the lead back on a Sammy Sosa double in the 5th. Then Biggio answered with a solo shot to tie it at 7 in the 6th. It remained tied into the bottom of the 7th, where the Cubs loaded the bases with 2 outs, and I'll just let SportsCenter explain what happened.
Grounding it the opposite way, Bagwell barehands it. Nice throw to beat Hojo. Check out the replay. Hojo, assuming the throw wasn't coming home, didn't run fast, and it was too late.
I don't even know what to say about that. The Astros took the lead for the first time in the next inning with a sac fly, while the Cubs loaded the bases with 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th. Todd Jones got Ozzie Timmons to pop out, and the Astros held on for an 8-7 victory. All 4 games of that series were decided by 1 run, and I imagine the fans of both teams went through a roller coaster of emotions. The Astros would now watch the end of the Giants-Rockies game on the clubhouse TV, and oh my goodness, what is going on in Denver?
Now the Astros, just in case you're wondering, are tied with the Cubs 6-6. Ewai drives this one deep in the gap, and it is out of here. Eric Young, home run number 6 on the last day of the season. Memories of Mile High. A 2-run shot by Eric Young. Whoa. And this one is high and deep and going back to the wall and looking out of here. Home run. 2-run home run by Larry Walker. Rockies within 2. This one is driven deep. Carry-on lost it. It's off of his glove. He couldn't find it. The Cat is going to be at second.
Carry-on fly ball deep left center field. How far can Burks go? He got it, I believe. He did.
Yes, he did.
Great catch by Ellis Burks, and there's finally a... Walker a homer his last time up. Bouncing ball, base hit right field. Here's Girardi. He'll score. Dante will go to third. It's a 1-run game. Rip! Base hit! Walker will go at least to third. We're tied. Galarraga will go on one leg to second and be in with a double. Looper down the line. If it's fair, it's another run. It is. An extra base hit for Walt Weiss, 10-8 as Cat scores. And the hits just keep coming.
The Giants, playing spoiler, had an 8-2 lead in the middle of the third, but Eric Young and Larry Walker each hit 2-run homers in the bottom of the third, and they scored 4 more in the sixth to take a 10-8 lead. The Giants got one back in the seventh to make it a 1-run game. Kurt Liskanek entered the ninth, looking to make up for his blown save on Friday. He just needed to record 3 outs without giving up a run, and the Rockies would be in the playoffs in only their 3rd ever season. He struck out the first 2 batters but allowed a 2-out single to give the Astros some hope. Jeff Reed represented the last chance for the Astros.
The cat has it. The celebration begins.